Before we head back to school, there are still a few more weeks of summer, and if you've stepped outside, oh my goodness, you know that we are in the dog days of summer. The hot dog days, that is. Oh yeah, July is National Hot Dog Month, and here to share on the hot dog and St. Louis,
of course,
too, yes, is our friend celebrity historian Rafi Andonian. Always good to see you, sir.
Of course. You know, actually, my very first meal when I moved to St. Louis was Steve's Hot Dog. So it's very fitting to have it was the local hot dog place, obviously fitting to be talking hot dogs here in St. Louis.
I love it. You never cease to amaze me with your fun facts. And one of the fun facts has to do with the 1904 World's Fair. What happened here?
So, of course, St. Louis natives have often heard the hot dog, or especially the hot dog bun, may have been invented at the World's Fair. It wasn't, unfortunately.
Okay.
However, that doesn't mean St. Louis doesn't have a great claim. You know how we know that? It's because a hot dog and a hot dog bun was being consumed in St. Louis at baseball games. And hence my Cardinals hat, of course.
Perfect.
But not at Cardinals games. It was at St. Louis Browns games, yes. Now, do you know today there is the St. Louis Browns Historical Society? I don't know if you realize they exist. I belong to them. And
that feels right as well.
It does, doesn't it? And they became the Baltimore Orioles eventually.
Okay.
And so they still exist in a different form, I suppose. But next month, we're having an event hosting Babe Ruth's grandson. And the story of Babe Ruth ties to hot dogs and St. Louis is because you see, the Baseball Hall of Fame credits St. Louis and New York with the introduction of hot dogs at baseball games. However, you get a load of these guys. The National Council for Hot Dogs and Sausages credits St. Louis. So I say that's a tiebreaker.
I think so.
Both between the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Council, I'll take it. And Babe Ruth, if you remember back in the tail end of the steroids era of baseball, there was a famous sign that said, Babe Ruth did it on hot dogs and beer. Remember that? So Babe Ruth was known as eating a lot of hot dogs. Some mythology went around that he ate a dozen hot dogs between double headers. It wasn't true.
Ooh, okay.
But that's how he was known. So in the 1920s, the era of mass popular culture, Babe Ruth being a major celebrity and eating hot dogs, that certainly makes a major popularization. And it starts with the Association of Baseball right here in St. Louis.
I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the hot dog itself. Is it a sandwich? I've thought this in my life. Is a hot dog a sandwich? What is it?
So the National Council that I described for sausages and hot dogs says it is not a sandwich, is what they say.
So what do they say?
I know, they're a little biased though, because they say it's like calling the Dalai Lama just a guy. That's what they said. And so they don't want it to be lumped in with a sandwich because it just kind of makes it another sandwich. They want it to be separate. In fact, their president, you know what she's known as? The Queen Ween. That's her title, believe it or not, for the council. And she said, she's the one that said, calling this a sandwich would be like calling Dalai Lama just a guy. So this is like the Dalai Lama of sandwiches, I suppose, is how you can look at it, which is really fascinating. And of course, they go back centuries, right, to Europe, where sandwiches also originate.
Okay.
In Germany, you have them for 500 plus years before, and of course, German immigrants are who introduced them to the United States, hence St. Louis again, of course. The German immigration to St. Louis has affected a lot of things in St. Louis. Now, I'll give you a fun stat from that these, if you want to call them sandwiches, are served in baseball games, more than 19 million a season, which works out to about 8,000 per ball game. So we're talking about a history that goes back centuries through sports, and then, of course, more other events like circuses, with the World's Fair and all kinds of things associated with good times. I would say very American. Franklin Delano Roosevelt actually served it to the King and Queen of Britain when they came to visit in the 1930s as a very American dish, a very Americana in its immigrant stories. But it is not a sandwich. It is uniquely American. I would argue it is even more American than a burger.
Okay, you heard it here first, friends. So to see more of Rafi, just head to his website, celebrityhistorian.com. We'll also post this segment at firstalertforward.com/mystl live following the show. If he's eating them, then I'm going to too, Damon, because I had one goal this summer, and it was to eat a hot dog. I've only had one, so I'm going to have two.
Okay, save me one. Or at least
you
half
got
of
it.
your hot dog sandwich, because that was a great question.
It was.
Thanks, Laura.